Norway, a land of breathtaking fjords, ancient legends, and a peace that most of the world can only dream of. But in the early 1990s, this tranquility was shattered. It started with the music, a sound so raw, so abrasive, that it felt like a scream from the abyss. But soon the darkness on the records spilled into reality. Graves were desecrated. Ancient wooden churches, some nearly 1,000 years old, were reduced to ash. And finally, the music scene turned on itself, leading to a betrayal that would end in a brutal murder. This is not just a story about heavy metal. This is a chronicle of radicalization, madness, and a cold-blooded hunt for true evil. This is the story of the Norwegian black metal inner circle. The year is 1991. In a small basement shop in Oslo called Helvete, which translates to hell, the seeds of chaos were being sown. The shop was owned by Øystein Arseth, better known by his stage name, Euronymous. Euronymous was the guitarist for a band called Mayhem, and he was the undisputed architect of the scene. Helvete wasn't just a record store, it was a sanctuary for those who felt alienated by society. A place where the inner circle gathered to discuss philosophy, paganism, and their hatred for the modern world. But the atmosphere in the scene was changing. It was becoming a competition of who could be the most extreme. And no one embodied this extremity more than Mayhem's new vocalist, a young Swede who called himself Dead. Dead Olin was obsessed with death. He would bury his clothes in the earth to achieve the scent of decay before a show. He would carry a dead bird in a bag just to inhale the stench of mortality before singing. To Dead, black metal wasn't a performance, it was a funeral ritual. On April 8, 1991, the ritual became real. Euronymous returned to the house the band shared to find that Dead had taken his own life. But instead of calling the police immediately, Euronymous did something that would define the dark legacy of the circle forever. He took photos of the scene. He even claimed to have collected pieces of the skull to give as gifts to worthy members of the scene. The line between art and atrocity had been crossed. And for a young man from Bergen named Varg Vikernes, the madness was only just beginning. In the early morning hours of June 6, 1992, the 6th day of the 6th month, the Fantoft Stave Church in Bergen was reduced to a charred skeleton. It was a masterpiece of 12th century architecture, a national treasure, and it was only the beginning. Over the next few months, more churches across Norway were targeted. The authorities were baffled. Was this a cult? A coordinated terrorist group? The media called them Satanists, but the reality was more complex. This was an ideological war against the modern world, led by the members of Euronymous' inner circle. While Euronymous was the architect, a new player had become the executioner, Christian Vikernes, who called himself Varg and performed under the name Bursum. Varg was different from the others. He wasn't just interested in the theater of evil, he was a man of action. He viewed the church burnings as an act of pagan cleansing, reclaiming the land from what he saw as a foreign religion. But he also knew that for the movement to grow, it needed a spark, and it needed the spotlight. In January 1993, Varg decided to break the first rule of the inner circle: silence. He contacted a journalist from a major Bergen newspaper for an anonymous interview. He claimed responsibility for the fires and warned that there was an army of terrorists ready to strike. Varg's goal was to generate fear and free the scene from Euronymous' control. It worked. The police arrested him shortly after, but due to a lack of evidence, they had to let him go. Varg was now a household name. He was the Count, and in the eyes of the youth, he had eclipsed Euronymous. The basement of Helvete was no longer a sanctuary, it was a pressure cooker. Euronymous was jealous of Varg's notoriety and resentful of the money he owed Varg for record sales. On the other side, Varg saw Euronymous as a poser, someone who talked about death but was too afraid to act. Rumors began to circulate that Euronymous was planning to kidnap Varg, torture him, and film the event. The master and the protege were now on a collision course. A storm was gathering in the cold Norwegian summer of 1993, and only one of them would survive the night of August 10th. August 10th, 1993. Varg Vikernes and a companion, Snorre Rook, left the city of Bergen. Their destination, Oslo, a 7-hour drive through the winding roads of the Norwegian night. They arrived at Euronymous' apartment complex in the early hours of the morning. Varg buzzed the intercom. He was let in. When the door opened, the two most powerful figures in the black metal underground stood face to face for the last time. What followed was a frantic, brutal struggle. It wasn't a clean fight. It spilled out of the apartment and into the stairwell. Euronymous, clad only in his underwear, tried to flee, banging on neighbors' doors for help. But the chase ended on the 4th floor. Varg caught him. When the police later examined the body of Øystein Arseth, they found 23 stab wounds, 2 to the head, 5 to the neck, and 16 to the back. The king of the underground was dead. The trial that followed was a media circus unlike anything Norway had ever seen. Varg Vikernes didn't show remorse. Instead, he used the courtroom as a stage. When the judge read his sentence, 21 years in prison, the maximum allowed under Norwegian law at the time, Varg simply turned to the cameras and smiled. To him, he hadn't just won the rivalry, he had become a legend. With Euronymous dead and Varg behind bars, the inner circle collapsed. Helvete was closed. But the fire they started didn't go out. It spread across the globe. Today, the music they created is a worldwide phenomenon, and the ruins of the Fantoft Church have been rebuilt. But the scars on the Norwegian landscape and the dark legacy of that basement in Oslo remain. A reminder of what happens when the line between a dark subculture and a violent reality finally disappears.